We present to you now to speak about the economic landscape, Mr. Peter Adrian. Mr. Adrian is a development economist, an educator, business developer. He's a sports writer. He's economist at the Sugar Industry Diversification Foundation, and he worked formerly as the senior advisor to the governor of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. Mr. Peter Adrian.
Good morning, and thank you for coming. Governor General and Prime Minister and honorable ministers, I crave your indulgence, the rest of my colleagues, to adopt the protocol. We want to speak, and we have captioned our presentation, looking for the next breakthrough. We hope to identify the growth trend of the domestic economy, to demonstrate the capacity for accelerating growth in the economy, to identify the low-hanging fruits, even if not tapped, that have the potential for shifting the production possibility frontier outward, and to challenge us to rethink, to bring new ideas, to push the frontier outward. But as an open economy, we are highly influenced by the external sector. The global economy continues to ail, send mixed messages. Consumption remains low. The US economy is still dragging. As we speak, the Eurozone is hemorrhaging, thanks perhaps to Germany. China is losing steam, but of course continue to be a bulldog. Latin America posted 6% in 2011, but our concern is the underperformance of the Caribbean economy of which we are part. We come home. The IMF forecasts that our domestic economy will reach its pre-recession peak in 5 years' time. If you look at the graph, you would observe that we can actually separate the trend into two. If you look at 2009, the period before 2009 was a tremendous growth period. We averaged more than 4%. And the period after have been difficult years because of the global financial recession and the global economic recession. But what is very interesting there, although we operate here below the zero line, there is a continual ability of the economy to kick up. So you can see the trend that it is struggling, it is fighting to move up, and it is determined to move up. That's interesting. I'll come back to that. But I want to make two observations on the IMF forecasts. Under condition of high volatility, which we are experiencing now, in economics, we try to shy away from making projections that are too long, so that it may be useful for me to do a shorter range projection so that we can understand, because when there is high volatility, the business cycles are shorter. And to get an appreciation of that, you need to look at the short range forecasts. Point number two, the projection of 3.5% growth in 2017 is actually done on the basis of a passive scenario. That is, IMF would have made that projection saying that if the production arrangements, if the level of efficiency, if the productivity issues, if the things that we do remain the same, then it will take us 5 years to get back near to where we were. Therefore, I ask the question, as an optimist, what happens if we change the underlying assumption. What happens if we reject the passive assumption and adopt an active assumption? In other words, we are saying that if we change the arrangement of the productive forces, can other things happen? In other words, if we are prepared to resist instead of surrender, can better things happen? So then, I ask, does a short-range forecast, even with the productive forces as it is, does it suggest a brighter outlook? And I have good news here. What we have done here, what we have done here is to look at this projection. Is to look at this projection here. What we do is to do a short-range projection, but for 2012 and 2013, we cause there to be more uncertainty in the projection by tampering with the deviation, the standard deviation of the growth rates. And it produced an interesting scenario. Look at this. It says to us that we can actually have an upper limit and a higher limit of the growth rate. In other words, playing with the uncertainty, it says by 2013, the economy can either grow, that is, by a negative 0.3, or it could grow by 6%. What is interesting about that? It forces us to ask the question, if you say this, Peter, if there a basis for optimism? So I offer you 3 empirical reasons, and I let you make the decisions. Reason number 1, very, very interesting. It shows that between 2011 and 2013, when forecasted, the economy is performing below its potential. And that is okay, because of the financial crisis, if you were to take a number of the growth trends of a number of those countries, the small emerging countries, you would see that most likely they are operating below their potential because of the low global consumption and, of course, the lack of injection of capital. Point number 2. The country, that is St. Kitts and Nevis, has transited to a service economy. But the dynamism of that economy is not being captured adequately and represented in the national accounts. Because the national accounts methodology, it is still biased towards the weighted economy. In other words, the goods economy. And even with the rebased accounts that we have, the rebased GDP, that we notice that because we have not finished our supplies and use tables, which would be able to disaggregate all the activities, you would notice that tourism is still defined as hotel and restaurants. So therefore, what is interesting here is the findings of my little scenario here. What I did here is to separate the economy between the weighted and the weightless. The weighted would be the manufacturing sector, mining and quarrying, agriculture, etc. And then the weightless would be services. Now, to ensure that I am empirically correct, methodology requires that I remove from services government services. So therefore, the NGS you see there, I'm meaning non-government services. What is the interesting finding? It is suggesting to us, long before the sugar industry was closed in 2005, the economy had already changed. The economy had transited into services. And I know that because I was a member of the Cabinet Committee for the closure of the sugar industry, which we injected 60 million every year In fact, we knew that. We may not have had the empirical detail, but look at this, how important that is. Now, what I have done there, if you look at the percentage, you would notice that they do not add to 100, because the rest of them, that is about 9%, would represent government services and other little clusters that are not adequately captured by the national account. But if you look at the trend, it shows that even with the IMF projection, the services economy or the weightless activities, these are the things that are going to drive us. But they are not adequately captured when forecasts are done on the economy. Point number 3, or B, to support that. The economy, as I showed in the previous graph, has been going through a restructuring, and the restructuring is gaining momentum. And I took 2 differences to compare 2 slices just to show you. If you look at real estate in 1990 and real estate in 2012, if you look at banking and insurance, which is supposed to represent the financial services sector, and here in 2012. So there is evidence, even without the truly representative database, there is clear a movement into services or clustered, if harnessed and tapped and developed properly, can move that economy forward. Next one. According to the rebased GDP figures released by the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, the current growth sectors are real estate, renting and business services, transportation, storage and communication, financial services, and construction services. These are the pies that I have pulled over there. But they are more interesting scenarios. The research shows that there is a cluster of activities which are related to what I call our natural endowment, which we have comparative advantage in. And they have capacity for low-hanging fruits, which we are not picking. And they have to do with our stock of intellectual capital, which we are not harnessing properly, our innovation, our creativity, and our lifestyle. Reason number 3. We have exceeded, and I want you to note that, St. Kitts and Nevis have exceeded its capacity to produce whenever it has challenged its creativity. And I'm going to give you 3 empirical reasons. Deliberate political economy decisions in the past have contributed to pushing the production possibility frontier outward. And I'll give you 3 cases of that. 1, Port Zante in 2002, reconstructed in 2002, gave the destination a competitive edge in the cruise industry, particularly in the Eastern Caribbean. The Marriott's opened in 2002, in fact, anticipated the closure of the industry, inserted St. Kitts and Nevis as a destination in the global marketplace. And let me tell you something. Insertion is a prime function precondition for transformation and growth in today's economy. If an economy or country is not properly inserted into the global economy, it's doomed. And some of the platform that the decision makers have taken, in a sense, have contributed to inserting that. Point number 3. The closure of the sugar industry in 2005 was indeed a watershed in the development and spurred economic transformation. Now, all what I have said there, how do you bring that to numbers? Are there numbers to support that? Yes, I discovered numbers to support that. If you look at this graph, the graph shows that the GDP grew at an average annual rate of 9% in those very years after, when the deliberate when those free deliberate policy decisions were taken. And if you look at it, let's look at it right here. If you look at from 2004, you would notice that until 2008, the growth rate stays within the band of 6% and 12%. Remember, my argument is that I am not accepting that I must wait for 5 years until I must go 3.5%. I am arguing that I see internal capacity, internal energy, based on what I have and what I have done in the past that can catapult me forward. That's what I'm trying to do, and I'm letting you be the judge. Now, what was the secret of that? The economy actually during this period, after the decisions of the Podzante and the closure of the industry and the Marriotts, the economy actually outperformed itself. Here is it right there. This is two trend lines that I have designed. Here you have the potential GDP, that's the red line, and this one is the actual GDP. Notice, from 2005 to 2009, the economy actual GDP higher than its potential, which means, therefore, those political economy decisions had the capacity to push the production possibility frontier outward. That's what the facts show. But today, we have come to another opportunity which requires us to push the production possibility frontier into economic transformation. We are presented with another challenge. We are called to demonstrate, as we have done before, the will to create. The next breakthrough challenges us to rethink, to dare, and to explore. SIDF is challenged to seed new businesses, stimulate activity, create jobs, enable innovation, to bring new products out of that box. To do this, the financial resources that it has must be so efficiently allocated that each injection must have a life-giving effect on the society and the economy. This is why, ladies and gentlemen, that we have humbly invited 5 working groups to challenge conventional business ideas and practices and guide our thinking like we have done in the past, perhaps in the area of education, economic diversification, and food security, alternative energy, tourism and hospitality, recreation, culture and sports. And maybe we should try to think out of the box. Thank you.